What is up, everybody? It's Dr. Vibe here, host and producer of the award-winning Dr. Vibe Show, the home of Epic Conversations, and I'm the host of Epic Conversations, 2020 Best Podcast News Award winner, 2018 Innovation Award winner, given out by the Canadian Ethnic Media Association. I also co-host and co-produce the only online show in the world for dads and fathers that's sponsored by Dove Men Plus Care. And in 2022 and 2021, we reached out directly and indirectly to over 100,000 fathers around the world. As always, I want to say you're blessed, highly favored, a magnet for miracles, and a solution for someone's problem. And let's do a little bit of homework here before we get into Black Canada Talking today. First up, as always, we'd love you, if you are up to it, to subscribe to the Dr. Vibe YouTube channel. When you subscribe, hit the subscribe button, then also hit the notification button so you get notified of epic conversations that I host on different platforms. And also follow the Dr. Vibe Show on Facebook, LinkedIn, and Instagram. Also, if you want to advertise your business, product, or service on the Dr. Vibe Show or Black Canada Talking or the Morning Vibe or all these other things that I do, please reach out to me. Vibe at the VIBESHOW.com. We are broadcasting live on November 19th, Sunday afternoon, and it is Black Canada Talking time. Black Canada Talking provides a space, a safe and brave space for Black Canadians to express their opinions, views, POVs on subjects, and also we like to showcase Black Canadians. But lately we've been showcasing a really important Black Canadian in my mind, Cesar Ndema-Moussa. So Cesar is with us today, looking sharp. You know what? Since he's done this, I'm gonna do this. All right. So I said Cesar is always on the tip when it comes to this. No, he can't get away with it today. I got to do something to even up with him. So, my brother, how are you today?
I'm good, Dr. Vibe. Thank you always for having me, and hi to all the listeners, all our brothers and sisters out there, and allies supporting the show. Thank you for having me always.
As always. And I have to thank you to introducing me to Ketchup Peters, because she has asked me to do a sharing session with some of the youth coming up in December. So,
Yes.
and I think you probably know them too. So I've asked her to give some insight on them, what's good to chat about, but I'm also going to reach out to you because you know those audiences better, what would resonate best. She's provided me the suggestion, and I also want to get input from you. But good to hear. What's been going on in your world?
Well, first, I would like to say two quick messages about how the value of supporting our community organizations that are trying to do something good for the community. And also, to support one another as individuals, because, as time passes by, more and more people around us are passing away. So we need to have that community support to coming together in good times, such as, whether it be dowries, in terms of African communities, but in engagement and weddings and parties. I always remind people I'm not against entertainment. I'm against toxic entertainment and the overvaluing of entertainment. So it's good to come together for good times, but it also matters to come together for sad times, notably as Black people. We tend to suffer in silence. And furthermore, with the weather in these countries, Western countries of, such as winter, where it makes it harder to go to one another's place showing each other support. I'm here with you today. Downstairs, I got family, but we also got neighbors, African and Caribbean neighbors. So we create a sense of community right here just as soon as you step out of the door. So let's support our community organizations in their efforts, but let's also support one another in our difficult times. Dr. Vibe, you know this. I was just coming from two events back to back, supporting a community organization and basically showing my condolences and also my support to the passing in the family of another community leader. So that's what I would say.
Yeah, and I'm going to add on to what you said. To me, we're coming to the end of 2023. And when I reflect back, some of my most powerful moments that I'm going to keep on to me going forward are with elders.
Mm-hmm.
Just quick little story. my dad, and I mention him more and more on this platform because I want to hail up my dad, and he's still alive.
Mm-hmm.
He has a very close friend named Denham Jolly. So people may or may not know that name, but he was the first Black Canadian to own a major radio station back, I think, in the 1980s. They have known each other for over 70 years.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if I'm going to live to 70. They've known each other from high school in Jamaica to today. And just 2 weeks ago, well, 2 years ago, Mr. Jolly had a street named in his honor. And about 3 weeks ago, he had a park that's attached to that street named in his honor. And when I came out to him, I said, Mr. Jolly, how you doing? He goes, you still doing your show? He's dead in the eye. And I go,
Yeah.
oh, yes, sir. He says, you do not quit. I don't want to hear you leaving that. And I said, well, can I come and get some knowledge? He says, anytime. But one of the things, when they had the ribbon cutting ceremony for the park,
Mm-hmm.
I took this. So this was part of the ribbon.
Mm-hmm.
So I put this, I'm going to be putting this up on my wall as inspiration, reminding of elders like Mr. Jolly, my dad, etc. Like
Mm-hmm.
you said, the stuff that they went through. And I don't want to let myself down, but I don't want to let them down, and also the people after us down.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, absolutely. And you know, that expression that says how when someone passes away, suddenly there's all this flooding of how great they were, and how valuable. Let us value ourselves while being alive, so that it
Yes.
becomes not only easier to support one another, but supporting one another. How can I put it? Don't just show up when people are dead, or when people are dying, or when there's a side event, or I mean, on the opposite, showing up when there's a party. Be there for real. Be someone that people know, like you're present. All this community stuff that we talk about, or being on panels, or you know having interviews. At the end of the day, all of this is great, absolutely. But the soul of the community is in the present moment to create a better future,
Yeah.
because we have learned from the past. We have learned from, uh, and this is very much also in our families. I remember this story. Allow me to say, crazy story about a black woman who died. This was a couple of years ago. This black woman died in England, and for 3 weeks nobody checked on her because she was so isolated from everyone. Her own family had no clue that she died, and she died for, no, I say 3 weeks. I think she had died for years actually. Nobody checked in on her. Let us not do that to ourselves. While we are here talking about community, we're here talking about black empowerment, we're here talking about Wakanda forever. Let's be there for one another today.
Let me we'll get to our conversation topics. We're having a shortened version today because I want Cesar to spend time with his family. But I'm just going to add one other thing. How Cesar's mentioned there, one of the things that a gentleman taught me a long time ago when I first met him, his name is Robert Leung. He said, Dr. Vibe, you should think about doing a living eulogy. I say, what do you mean? Living and eulogy? That's an oxymoron. But he
Hmm.
said, don't you recognize a lot of times people say the best they want to say to a person is when they're gone.
Yes, yes,
Why aren't we saying it when they're alive?
yes. Yeah.
Yeah. Right. So, and Leslie McEwen, you know what? Nothing just happens. I mentioned you in a conversation on Thursday to a gentleman named Vidal Regisford, who is a psychotherapist. And I gave you big flowers in his presence. He said, I'd love to meet her. So what I've done is, Leslie, and I've sent one or two links of conversations that you've had with me. And thank you so much for taking that time with me to him. So do not be surprised in the next week or so that I'm reaching out saying, hey, do you have some time to meet a fellow psychotherapist in the Toronto area? And Leslie is saying, yes, give the roses now. Yeah. And I read that years it was. Yeah, absolutely. So Leslie, thank you for becoming a continuous light. And I am overdue to give you a call. So get ready this week. It's coming because I need some guidance. from you in some areas, and I know you have the evaluate experience that I need, and not only in me but through me. So, as we continue on today's conversation, our first conversation topic, Cesar wants to talk about creation of a reparations fund for slavery in Africa. I had no idea about this, Cesar. Tell us.
It's an important topic, Dr. Vibe. As you know, back at the end of May, beginning of June, um, we were part of the delegation of the Canadian Black Civil Society going to New York City at the headquarters of the United Nations to address, basically issues impacting Black people worldwide in the context of the Permanent Forum for People of African Descent. And one of the main topics there was, of course, reparations for slavery. So what has happened, and we have this great article here, is that there was a summit that occurred in Ghana that basically addressed the importance of why there needs to be global reparations to Africans for slavery. Now, we got to understand this in the context of already ongoing conversations in terms of the reparations movement, such as in the United States. And here, allow me to already address some of the naysayers and the critics in terms of thinking this is kind of trying to take advantage or this is some type of laziness and what about other people? Well, sisters and brothers and allies, the Jewish community got reparations since World War II and the Shoah, aka the Jewish genocide, the genocide upon the Jews by the Nazi and their allies. The Japanese got reparations for the internment during at the beginning of World War II, following Pearl Harbor. Many communities have gotten reparations. Some African communities actually did get some reparations, such as the Herero and the Nama, the victims of the first genocide in the 20th century, again by the Germans of the Second Reich, so before Hitler, at the beginning of the 20th century. So, for those who like to criticize the fact that Black people in the Americas, just as in Africa, are seeking reparations, is not something that should be looked down or that should be questioned in terms of either trying to take advantage of a system, etc., etc. The calculations to come to the amount of these reparations are made by experts who are able to study to the very root approximately what that would look like, because truthfully you cannot truly repair what slavery has done to Black people on both sides of the ocean. And when I say both sides of the ocean, I should say oceans, because we're talking about the Atlantic Ocean, but anti-Black racism is as global as the slavery of Black people. The Indian Ocean, in terms of the Arab Muslim slave trade and having Africans being enslaved all the way to Asia. When you put on Netflix, you hear the story of the Black samurai Yasuke. How did Yasuke, born in Africa, ended up in the 16th century in Japan? That's slavery. So I very much support the reparations movement, but I have an important criticism here. The criticism is not in the essence of reparations or not. My criticism is that why only address reparations from the Christian West, from white Europeans? That is a fundamental problem to me that speaks to the very geopolitics, but also issues such as of religion that basically make Black people still be subservient to the Middle East and North Africa. As speaking of reparations, truthfully, and I've said this before even on your show, Dr. Vibe, and for those who wonder, I'm also a consultant on religion. I've presented on religion. I have notably here some of my, framed education on religion, where I am a member. I am a member of the Academic Society for the Global Research. Global Research. My God, so many names. What's the name of this one? The Global Center for Religious Research. I'm a member of the Academic Society for the Global Center for Religious Research. And one of the things that most Black people ignore is that the Arab Muslim slave trade of Africans began before and lasted longer than the white European Christian enslavement of Black people. Since the 7th century and still ongoing today, as just a few years ago, 2017, people can remember the images of Blacks enslaved in Libya, just as there is an entire system of modern slavery in the Middle East that notably impacts Black people, not just, but notably, called the kafala system. So the Arab Muslim slave trade has killed far more Black people, millions more, notably through castration of males as young as 6 year old, and notably through mass rapes of the Black woman. This is why when you go to North Africa, many of the white Maghrebi families that you see in the north of those countries actually tend to have families that are Black in the south of those countries. And many of them, if you actually did a DNA test or you looked at the history of those families, they are darker the farther back you go in time. The perfect example, the royal family of Morocco. I challenge anyone to look at the royal family of Morocco and see what they looked like in the 17th century. Drawings and descriptions were already occurring at that time, and you can clearly see that it was a darker / Black family at the time. So what I'm here to say regarding this, total support to the reparations fund for slavery in Africa. It must happen. The monies are there. It's the matter of political will. It's the same that we saw, such as the repatriation of stolen art objects to Africa. The objects are there. It was a matter of political will. Just as right here, Canada, a colonial nation, when we talk about reparations to indigenous people, the money is here, but is the political will there? And in Canada, the tragedy of the unmarked graves of Kamloops truly forced the government to open purses and to engage in truth and reconciliation at a faster and more meaningful pace. This is the same thing that's going to happen in Africa in this 21st century, where all the demographic projections speak of 2050 as the year when 1 out of 3 humans, so this is 27 years from now, Dr. Vibe, it's very likely that we might be alive. 27 years from now, 1 human being out of 3 will be African. I did not even say Black when we take account of the Black populations in the Americas that are increasing, and especially in Brazil, where contrary to what most people think, because we are strongly influenced by the United States, in Brazil, half of the population can claim to being Black. And in the Americas, half of Black people in the Americas are actually in Brazil. So Africa becoming more powerful, having a more powerful voice, thanks to its demographics, must go along with stronger economic presence. It's not accidentally that you see China, Russia, but also the United States and the West trying to re-engage the relationship with Africa from a neo-colonial to so-called partnerships. And I'm saying so-called because there are still ongoing conferences in terms of this country with this continent, which to me is an insult, because one would not imagine a conference of Jamaica with Europe. You see what I mean? But We can easily imagine a conference of Great Britain with Caribbean nations. So that's colonialism right there. Allow me to stop here for now, but basically, I support this reparations fund, global reparations fund for slavery in Africa, but I challenge those leaders. I dare them. And for anyone who think I'm saying this just now on Dr. Vibe, I said this at the United Nations a couple of months ago in my recommendations that I submitted. I believe 22 recommendations are submitted. Don't ask me what they did with it. Don't ask me if they even took it out of it. But I did say it. We must dare to be honest and educate our Black people regarding the history. It is not just the white European Christians who enslaved and colonized Africans. Long before them, since the 7th century, there was a targeting of Africa that began when the Arab Muslim armies conquered Egypt in the year 639 and began slavery of blacks with the BACT Treaty, BAKT or BAQT Treaty upon Black Sudanese as a direct form of anti-Black racism and enslavement. So we must dare to have that wholesome conversation. The problem, of course, being too many Black people point the finger very easily at white Westerners, Christians, and put on them the whole blame for slavery and colonization, and they become blind, manipulated by the white Arab Muslims who began slavery before and are still ongoing with slavery as we speak of today.
Time doesn't permit, but definitely on another program, we have to talk about this is so look, actually I'm going to just ask another quick question on this. This story, is it just reparations for Africa or on a global platform?
The language here is very interesting, to put it lightly. Technically, it's for Africa, but they're saying global in terms of global reparations for Africa. Unfortunately, the notion of global is really European nations.
Yeah,
So
because I'm looking here because, and again, time doesn't permit, but we got a parking lot this reparations, a country thing, a nation thing, a continent thing, a global thing. So, because when I see in Africa, is this something just African nations are concentrating on, and will it be a more challenge or less of a challenge to have reparations done in Africa compared to North America, compared to Europe, etc.?
it's part of a global thing, but you see, and this is where I mean, it's good that it's happening now. I mean, it hasn't begun in 2023, but it's good that we're talking 2023 instead of 27 years later in 2050. But the
Sure.
problem, let me add to the complexities here. How are you going to convince India that they actually owe reparations to Africa for slavery when it is documented that African slaves have been brought to India? They have contributed to India. One of the greatest Indian historical characters, Malik Ambar, who became a vizier, basically a prime minister in the Deccan states,
Hmm.
was born in Africa, taken as a slave. When India will tell you that they were victim of colonialism by the British, how are you going to convince Russia that they owe reparations for slavery to Africa when one of the greatest generals of Russian history, Gamal Abramovich, is born literally in what today we call Cameroon, where I'm born? And FYI, the father, or let's say the equivalent of Shakespeare in Russia, the father of Russian literature, Alexander Pushkin, is the grandson of Gamal Abramovich. So you see what I mean?
Yeah.
I'm not at that table.
Yeah.
I'm not being sought after. I would really dare to challenge it in terms of really addressing how complex it is. And it's not a simple matter of let's forget about it, but truthfully, it's a matter of power. When you become powerful enough, and I'm saying powerful, demographics is great, but it means nothing if the majority of your community is still following the religions of your oppressors. It means nothing if you have so many of your population that are looking at Europe as heaven. It means nothing if you can have China coming to buy land in Africa and own it for their population, but you can't imagine Africans going to China buying and owning land for Africans. So
Mm.
it really becomes reparations is nice. I will support it. But let us have the real conversations that are on power, on economics, on identity, on religion. These are the real conversations if you really want to address this issue. Because if not, we're just changing one oppressor to the other oppressor and fooling ourselves with big rhetoric that are going nowhere.
Okay. So just going to put some comments out here. Clyde Love says, my brother. Uh,
Brother Clyde, yes.
yes. And Faces by Pureness. Hello, Faces by Pureness. And yes, yes, you saw me at the movie screening last week of LA Waits. I didn't see you and I couldn't stay long, but hey, thank you for stopping by. It's appreciated, not taken for granted. Now, Cesar, we're running against the clock. so,
I'm here. I'm good. The family's there. Let's push it. Let's go 6:15.
okay. All right. So let's go our next conversation piece. Oh, we already did that. Sorry. Let's do this one. Shifting from equity seeking to equity deserving. I did
Yes.
again. Cesar brings things to my attention I did not know, but we need to know. So, Cesar, go for it.
So, and I, we got the link there. It's an important conversation we must have as Black people. And it's not a conversation that only cater to Black people, but Dr. Vibe, let me put it to you how important it is. And forgive me, I will use a word that all the youth in our organization know that I oppose, and I fight against this word, but let us dare to be honest. In the times of the leaders behind me, such as Brother Malcolm X, Brother Martin Luther King, it was common language, including from them, to say the Negro or the Negroes. Today, it is not a language that we deem appropriate. It is not a language that we could expect a politician to use. We say black, just as we say African Americans or African Canadians. Just as for the original people of this land, called Canada and the United States, all the way down to Brazil, a few years and a few decades ago, them being called aboriginals was deemed normal. Aboriginal actually is an insult that implies abnormal. And today we use the term indigenous. So here, when we're talking about power relations and group identities, it's important that we shift our language for those who are notably in the professional sector, but also in the media, that we speak not of equity seeking, which puts an onus upon those who are marginalized, such as Black people, that they are seeking equity. They have to fight to have equity. But the true language that we should be using in terms of the evolution of language, and this is very woke. For those who have an issue with the term woke, I am woke. I'm proud of being woke. My heroes were woke. 100 years ago, the Marcus Garvey, the 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 um, the Marcus Garvey, just as W.E.B. Du Bois. It's from there that started the term woke in terms of being awakened to the government oppressing Black people. Woke comes from Black people. Malcolm X, Martin Luther King, Nelson Mandela, Thomas Sankara told us to be woke. The Haitian Revolution, 1804, and the Battle of Vertières, 1791. Clyde Love and any Haitian listening, please correct me if I get the dates wrong. They told us to be woke. So, being woke is to adjust our language. We are not equity-seeking groups. We are equity-deserving. We live in the 21st century, and notably here in Canada. So, to give you an example, the question has come to me as a senior leader and as a consultant about swearing in terms of an oath. I do not swear on the Bible, as anyone can easily understand why. I don't believe in anything. But I stand by the Canadian Charter of Freedoms and Rights. And the very fact of a Charter of Freedoms and Rights basically means that we deserve equity in the same sense as whites are not seeking equity nor justice. They deserve it by their simple status of being Canadians, in the same way as even when they are not Canadians. We look at the example of refugees from Ukraine being treated fundamentally different than refugees from Haiti and Ethiopia or refugees from Syria and Afghanistan. In a land of democracy and rights, we are not equity seeking, we are equity deserving. We deserve equity. This is in the same evolution of language, because language, so what you speak of, is a construction of the workings in the present, the deconstruction of the systems. And to deconstruct the system, you need to go further back in addressing the history and the culture, etc. I give you a very good example, even right here in Canada, as I'm speaking to you here in 2023. We go back 30 years ago. It was my father who was engaged in this conversation regarding the expression visible minorities. In the evolution of language in the 90s, visible minorities made sense because we were basically invisible in terms of notably the constitution, the language. Let us not forget. So for us in the 40s and 50s, etc., and older, we know this, but for many of our young Black people, notably who are born here, it may be shocking for them to discover that Black people were not allowed in Canada until the early 60s. Black people who were here in Canada were the descendants of slavery from the United States and few from slavery in Canada, such as in Quebec and in Ontario. But Black people, as migrants from the Caribbean and Africa, were not allowed in Canada until the 1960s. This is in the same conversation where 15 years prior, Jewish people from Europe were not allowed in Canada. There are stories, even when you go to the Museum of War, where boats carrying Jewish people fleeing the Nazi regime were not allowed to enter Canada or the United States. So it's only since the 60s that Black people have been allowed to immigrate legally to Canada. I'm talking Black people. I'm not talking here about a few diplomats per se. I'm talking Black people, regular Black people, not, foreign affairs representative or political representatives. And as such, the evolution of language made it that, example, as my father was in this struggle, visible minorities made sense, but visible minorities stopped making sense, notably in the 2010s. When you are claiming that we are visible minorities, it's racist actually, because what are you implying, that whites are not visible? When we talk about race, when we talk about power, when we talk about demographics, whites have the upper hand in this country. They have the upper hand from Canada to Brazil. Even when we say Latinos, I'm sorry, Latinos are white. They are whites of Spanish language and culture. That's why we say Afro Latinos to refer to those who are blacks, and we say indigenous, notably indigenous Latinos. You see what I mean? So it's important that for those black people in the community field, in the political realm, in the media, shift your language, my black people. Speak of equity deserving. This is the same conversation where you will often hear, we still hear this being talked about, uh, third world countries. That is racist. It's the global majority. Even when we say visible minorities, we are the global majority. The language shift that is necessary is a reflection of power dynamics, but also consciousness of people. I gave you a last example. Outside of the black community, everybody knows who the most famous Asian person is in the world. A man named Bruce Lee, aka that's his Western name, Lee John Fan. You just look at his movies in Hollywood, or even Dragon, the movie, and why he left America. The perception of Chinese people at the time, late 60s, early 70s, anti Asian, anti Chinese racism. Look at the perception of China now. China is powerful. Joe Biden met this week Xi Jinping. And even despite the controversies about calling him a dictator, let's be careful, dictator in the Western sense. He may call himself President Xi or whatever you want to call it, but not every government has to be democratic. Different people, different path. But just look at the difference of treatment when a nation, when a people become powerful. Here, Ottawa, you go the Canadian capital. You go to Somerset and Brunson. So basically entering Chinatown, you have Chinese bank, you have Canadian banks with Chinese writings on them.
Yes.
That speaks to power. That speaks to connections. That speaks to a sense of community. That speaks to you cannot talk to us in any way. You impose respect. You don't beg respect. You impose it by working on yourself, by elevating yourself. This is true for an individual. It is true for a community. It is true for a nation.
Well, also too, I want to add to that that not only did President Biden, but a number of leaders of top American companies met with Xi, the leader of China. So
Of course,
obviously, that's power, right? Like that's power.
100%. And it connects so much to our previous story in terms of, yeah, we talk about reparations, but we must work on ourselves to be strong, to be united, to be conscious, to impose our respect, to be not just seen from the lenses of stereotypes. And even as Black people, we stereotype ourselves a lot. The
Yes.
event where I was at, I was stereotyped. Someone offered me to be a security at the event, and people who knew me laughed. They laughed because they're like, "Wait, this is the
Please,
wrong guy."
no, please tell me you're joking.
He insisted.
Please, no, 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 no,
The funniest
no.
thing is that I was with a brother who is a singer, an entertainer, and this is someone that this is a great brother actually that I should recommend for your show, brother Abel Maxwell. Great guy, great guy. He does great things. Uh, I'm talking with him, and this person, it was just. But if the point is just that as Black people, we do stereotype ourselves, so we can't be surprised that others stereotype us. But more importantly, we got to work on ourselves to impose the respect that we deserve. And it starts at the individual level, such as we teach our youth at Roots and Culture Canada with mentorship through basketball and food and etc. We must work on ourselves, work on our communities, work on our nation, so that when we stand, we impose that respect. Notice we're talking about China. Let's give an example of a dictatorship. Saudi Arabia is pulling events of entertainers, bringing
Oh,
in
big
the
time.
top
And
golfers, etc., because they're imposing the respect through oil money, but also
yeah,
diversifying the revenues into the countries and buying assets in
yeah,
Western nations.
yeah, yeah. Absolutely. Absolutely. Cesar, in lieu of time, I think we should save the last topic for next time because it's a generic topic. Plus, I want you to spend some time with your family. So, are you okay with that?
I'm okay with that, Brother Vibe.
Okay. So, if people want to get a hold of you, where can they do that?
Reach me on Facebook, easiest way, Cesar Remy Emery. And you can reach me out if you're an organization. If you're serious, please.
Yes.
Uh,
Say that word. Serious.
if
Yes.
you're serious, I'm not looking. I absolutely am not someone who cares about the whole popularity thing or having X amount of followers or whatever you want to call it. But yes, you know how to reach me. Facebook is just the easier way to reach me. So yes, please let us work together, my Black people. Let us keep elevating our consciousness.
Yeah.
I guarantee you, it's not always easy. I may even offend you in some of my posts. I'm just saying that because I was told that at the event, a brother told me, "I love when you post, and it's so offensive sometimes." But he wakes up people. That's what he said. He wakes up our people. Our people need this. Too many of our leaders, and maybe I should say some of them so-called leaders, make our people feel too comfortable in order to increase the proximity to whiteness for their own interest. So yes,
All right.
let us dare to challenge ourselves. Let us dare to be uncomfortable, to elevate ourselves, elevate our families, elevate our communities, and elevate our nations.
Thank you, sir. We will see you soon. Remember to give yourself grace and don't just manage your time, manage your energy. Peace. All right, family. Another epic conversation by Cesar. And we got a great topic when he comes back next time, probably in a week or two on the Sunday. It'll be amazing. So let's close it down. So let's do a few things. I'll put it along the bottom here. As always, please subscribe to the Dr. Vibe Show on YouTube and subscribe and hit the notification button. Also, follow the Dr. Vibe Show on Facebook, Instagram, and LinkedIn. Also, to advertise your business, product, or service, please email me, dr.vibe at the drvibeshow.com. And then it's scrolling along the bottom. If you're watching, I'll tell you though, verbally, you can watch replays of Black Canada Talking on the Dr. Vibe Show on YouTube, Facebook, and LinkedIn, and at the Dr. Vibe Show, the drvibeshow.com. So as we close it down, as we do this, let me just get it here. Okay, I'm going to say, live your life as a dream. If you can dream it, you can make it. Sometimes you have to get smaller to get stronger. Block assumptions and aim bigger, aim better, aim higher, aim wider. Love, faith, and respect. Remember to give yourselves grace and don't just manage your time, manage your energy. I want to say thank you for everyone for watching live on the replay. God bless, peace well, keep the faith, and walk good, and we'll see you soon.
Yeah. Listen.